Hello everyone, I'm back in the Marvel shirt, so you know what that means. We're talking spoilers. We're talking Thor, Love and Thunder. So if you haven't seen it, go see it, and then come back. I did warn you. Thor, Love and Thunder is the most recent Marvel picture. It follows Thor, a character we've known for like probably 10 years now, and is helmed by Taika Waititi. Taika Waititi is now well established in the film sphere, having helmed the previous film Thor Ragnarok to widespread critical acclaim. I liked Thor Ragnarok. I remember seeing it when it first came out and thought it was this fun, fresh, new take on the genre, but I haven't rewatched it since. I was thinking about that going in to see Thor Love and Thunder, going, do I need to watch Ragnarok again? And I think the reason why I don't rewatch it is because it seems like a lesser version of two things that I like. If I want to watch a Taika Waititi movie, I won't watch Thor Ragnarok, I'll watch any of his other films. And if I want to watch a Marvel movie, I don't watch Thor Ragnarok, I watch Avengers, or Black Panther, or Civil War. Because Thor Ragnarok is a mix of two things, neither halves really make a whole. The comedy of the film is great, but doesn't reach the heights of Taika's other films. And the Marvel stuff is great, but doesn't reach the action heaviness of Marvel's other movies. Which is fine. The movie still, I think, succeeds in it. So going into Thor Love and Thunder, I wasn't sure what to expect from it. But this movie is bad. I mean, it's not like it's not an objectively bad film, but it's just disappointing. I wanted to love this movie. I wanted it to have the same fun and thrills as Thor Ragnarok, but the film suffers from the things that Thor Ragnarok did badly. It feels like two different films. You have this incredibly serious story of Gore the God Butcher that is then juxtaposed with this silly, fun, almost childish superhero narrative. They don't fit. It's the same problem I had with Fantastic Beasts. When you try to have them both ways, neither fully reach their potential. Christian Bale is almost wasted here. His performance is not bad, it's just bad for this movie. He's giving a very serious performance, one that requires a more serious response. Thor's character is too goofy to go up against Gore the God Butcher, or at least this version of Gore that's incredibly dramatic. The serious Gore and the goofy Thor is almost jarring. Gore's character has so little development. His motivation is weak. His want to save his daughter is final until the very end when there's the big twist and reveals that he could have just saved her with the wish, in which he goes, oh, yeah, I guess I could have just done that. It kind of all falls apart. It doesn't feel like a real change in the character. It just feels as if the writing needed Gore to change his mind. It's a shame seeing such a talented actor just kind of used in this way and underutilized. Speaking of that, Jane Foster is in this film again. And I really like Natalie Portman, but I feel as if her character is also incredibly underdeveloped in this movie. The movie really suffers from the fact that Natalie Portman only signed on to do one more film. So the whole film is written around this fact that at the end of the movie, Jane can't be around anymore. So they have to somehow ride her out. And it is so blatant that it just kind of distracts you because you go, oh, she's dying because she has to die because Natalie Portman isn't going to come back for the next film. The fact that the actors can't sign on for multiple films is fine. That's a totally normal thing. But at that point, you go, why bother? Marvel have set up this expectation for serialized narratives that to bring people in for a singular episode, if you will, of this television show seems kind of cheap. This entire film is that. It feels almost like a filler episode trying to make us buy time until the next episode comes out. But the film struggles to even do that. Nothing about this movie has actual progression of the characters. Thor's character arc is almost reverted from post-Endgame back to the way he was in Ragnarok. The Guardians of the Galaxy appear as literally just cameos to be like, oh, last time you saw Thor, he was with the Guardians, so here the Guardians are now, and now they're leaving goodbye. They don't really serve anything other than to teach Thor a lesson that he struggles to learn. They're plot devices. They're not interesting characters. And Thor goes back to this Thor Ragnarok, but even more so of a parody of himself, this boisterous, over-arrogant person. He speaks in this almost like Joss Whedon self-aware dialogue that did not land for me at all throughout this movie. Speaking of things not landing, I think the comedy of this film was not good. I think Taika Waititi is an incredibly talented comedic director. I just think in this case, none of it worked. This film suffers from weak, and I would even say bad writing that just kind of doesn't fully utilize characters that have been developed over multiple years. The film is more preoccupied with telling us stuff we already know than getting on with the plot. We have these long flashbacks narrated by Korg talking about what happened in the last films or films before. It's almost like previously on, which would be fine, but typically if I'm watching a previously on, I go skip intro. I've already seen this bit. Jane Foster dying from cancer is a really interesting story that has been developed really well in the comics before. But in the film, it just feels as if they've hurried the process for the sake of getting Natalie Portman out by the end of the movie. It's like a summary of Jason Aaron's incredible Mighty Thor run. It doesn't propel the relationship between Thor and Jane. It just feels as if we're seeing it again, especially since most of the film is just flashbacks showing us what went wrong. These are things that we could have inferred in films over the years. We don't need to see flashbacks of them having problems. As I said in my Multiverse of Madness video, I think it's better if Marvel treats the audience as if they do know what's going on, because even if they don't, most people are smart enough to figure it out without being unnecessarily lambasted with more exposition. I'd rather have a film like Multiverse of Madness that has little fluff and requires some sort of pre-reading, instead of having one just so bogged down with expository moments that it just takes away from the momentum of the film. I don't know if people who have never watched a Marvel movie before will watch this movie, and if they will like it. If you are one of those people and you're watching this, leave it in the comments or whatever. I'd actually be really interested to see. I think this movie especially does a good job of trying to find that audience. But for me, a person who has followed this television show for the past decade now, it's very obvious to see that Thor's character arc it's done. He's the first character in the MCU to get 4 movies, and now apparently possibly 5. And this film shows that there really is nothing else for him to do. He has nothing else to grow. It just perpetuates the character arc that we had in Thor Ragnarok without any of the interesting developments of him and Loki. A lot of this movie looks really nice. The design and the direction is good. It just suffers from bad writing. The design of Eternity is really cool, and there's some really interesting black and white moments, but it's more style over substance. They just kind of distract you from the fact that you don't really care, or at least I didn't really care about what was actually going on. Coming out of the movie, one of the people I saw it with turned to me and was like, man, that movie would have been so good if it was like good. And I'm like, I totally agree with you, because what makes this movie so bad, or at least worse in my opinion, is that you can see the potential of something good. And I'm sure that this movie was hit by massive production problems because of the pandemic, but it's just a shame that even with all of that, you can't help but watch the movie and go, oh man, this really feels as if it has been hit by something else and that its potential just wasn't reached. The 2 end credit scenes of the film do nothing but set up sequels or just pay off things that happened at the start of the film. At least Multiverse of Madness had payoffs during the film that it didn't need to do in the post-credit scene, but in this movie, nothing about the film at all sets up anything other than a sequel to Thor 4. We as fans are expecting a level of commitment to the story, but in this film it doesn't feel like they committed at all. Look, I'm sounding like a spoiled fanboy, but at this point I think we should hold Marvel more accountable for their failures. I think they've been putting out some really great stuff recently, and just this film especially made me go, oh, that's a misstep. This is a nothing movie. It doesn't expand upon anything, it doesn't reintroduce anything to the MCU, it just exists. Halfway through the movie, I thought, maybe I'm done. You know, maybe this is it. Maybe I won't watch Marvel stuff anymore if this is just going to be this kind of levels of DC filmmaking of just like kind of stock standard, boring, generic, standalone things. And it's a real shame because I think they've been at the top of their game recently. The last 5 films that have released and all of the Disney Plus shows that have come out recently, I think are of a really high quality. But this film was almost the straw to break the camel's back. By the end of the film, I got over it, and I was like, nah, I'll watch these till the day that I die. But I was just disappointed that, like, Marvel was able to capitalize off of my ability to watch all of their movies to put me in front of something that was just bad. Man, I just hope a Star Wars movie is better than this. Thanks for watching. I don't usually like making videos about things I don't like. I don't like putting like negativity out there, but I had to talk about this movie, and I just wanted to get it off my chest. That's why it's coming out now. I know this is going to be a Fortnite video that's coming out next week. If you like the movie, I'm glad. I'm very happy for you. I was just very disappointed by it. But yeah, thank you. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.